Of course, and there's no two ways about the fact that Sanjay Mishra has been rewarded and awarded very well by the Modi government. But we must also discuss how ED has become an important electoral tool also in the hands of the government. We must not forget, just few days back, Tejasvi Yadav, Lalu Yadav, they were all questioned by the ED, and repeatedly this has been happening in every election. So does now the ED chief, who, I mean, Sanjay Mishra, of course, is now part of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, but the ED chief is also part of the electoral machinery now. So he has to not only do his job as an ED chief, but he also has to do things which are part of the election conduct.
Well, Neelu, thankfully, although I'm surprised how the Supreme Court yet hasn't passed its verdict categorically in terms of the ED's powers, the truth is that in separate observations, they have mentioned that the ED arresting people without, kind of necessary information to the person who's being accused, and arresting people actually without even substantive foundational cases, trials being delayed for a considerable period. And obviously, as we can all see, the conviction rates have been wretched. That points out to the fact that the ED today has been completely dismantled in terms of its reputation, second, its credibility, and third, based on the conviction rates, it clearly hasn't been able to make any tangible progress, despite the fact that I read reports that they have seized assets worth roughly 65,000 crores. Now, seizing of assets is not the end of a problem. The proof of the pudding is that if you accuse somebody of X, is the court upholding that as a fair accusation? And that is really not happened, barring, I think, 2 leaders from Jharkhand who got convicted. So I think when I look at, say, for example, the electoral bond issue, and you saw there how, suddenly the ED said, fine, a bail can be given to somebody. Why did they do that great turnaround on the liquor scam case? That gentleman from Hyderabad. So, I just feel that we are witnessing in India the theater of the absurd. This is supposed to be a great democracy. In modern times, when you have social media, you have television, you have YouTube podcasters, and even if the government tries to be very opaque and not let the bad news come out, the truth is that people today, thanks to social media, they're empowered to at least know what's going on. And I feel that it takes some degree of audacity or shamelessness or brazenness or a sheer, that thick skin of a rhinoceros that says, I don't care at all. The message I think Mr. Modi's government is essentially sending through many things that it says and does over the last 10 years is that we don't care, because once we win an election, we believe it's the mandate for us from the people of India to do exactly what we want. Okay. And I think that to me should be a worry for everybody who's watching your program and cares for democracy. Now, democracy is not some abstract term, one of those Western concepts that only the elite and those who are educated and speak English and are supposedly the Khan market gang that Mr. Modi doesn't like, or the Lutyens elite that he abhors, that I think his government is essentially part of now. That I think it's not just some kind of an exercise in an academic rumination. Democracy is serious business. And I think if today everyone and every institution is going to be so compromised, which is supposed to basically govern India, and that includes the people who are at the helm of affairs, then I think Indian democracy, frankly speaking, will go further down the slippery slope into a black hole.
I also want to ask you the kind of impact it's going to have on the general bureaucracy in the country. This incentive or this reward which has been given to Sanjay Mishra, that now earlier he was the ED chief, the loyal ED chief, has now been promoted to the Prime Minister's office. Now, is it going to really work as an incentive now for the other bureaucrats that, look, don't listen to your conscience. The more loyal you are to the government, the better rewarded you will be, the better prospects you will have. Is that the message which the Prime Minister has sent out today to the entire bureaucracy of the country?
Well, I can tell you that, while a lot of the conversation is on the failure of India's political ecosystem, particularly the authoritarianism or the corruption in our political structure across parties, but primarily, I would say, the ruling party in New Delhi, the bottom line is that even the bureaucracy has failed our country. And that is a tragedy because the bureaucracy is aware that it cannot be thrown out every 5 years. And the bureaucracy has a job basically to uphold the standards that any government needs to deliver on. For example, there are rule books, there are policies, there are procedures, there is a due diligence, and there is all kinds of constitutional and democratic obligations. And the bureaucracy, unfortunately, has turned out to be extremely spineless under Mr. Modi's government. I can tell you, for example, during the UPA time, it was the bureaucracy that actually brought down the UPA. If you look at it in detail, and I always felt that the tragedy is that even within the bureaucracy, I'm sure there are people who are deeply perturbed by the way the last 10 years have gone, but they may be a little paranoid or scared to express themselves because a political system is very powerful and they can really hound you out or harass you and intimidate you. And bureaucrats are not as well paid as the private sector is, and everyone looks for a nice peaceful life after retirement. So I think many people have chosen to be quiet in the bureaucracy, and there are others who are more ambitious, who are more opportunistic, and who probably see, hey, listen, I mean, why not kind of take advantage of the situation? And if the political masters want a few favors, and we have to just kind of harass a few innocent people or a Rahul Gandhi and make him go through an interrogation, let's do it. And I think that, in a great number of ways, is India's tragedy. That it's not just the politicians who I think have been a disaster for the country. And I say, despite the fact that I'm in politics myself, the truth is India's bureaucracy has failed India. And when these two elements fail simultaneously, Nilo, then I think I feel sorry for the Indian citizen. If you look at the police in this country, election commission, the income tax, the ED, the CBI, the election commission, you can keep adding to this list. The CAG, you add now the courts. I mean, it's out in the open, right? I mean, why are we forgetting that 4 senior Supreme Court judges came out of the open and held a press conference and said, the Supreme Court benches are fixed. Now, when you have that kind of an allegation, you saw what happened to Ranjan Gogoi. There was a serious allegation against him of a personal misdemeanor. And within months of his leaving the job of the most, I would say, hallowed job in this country, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, he was in the Raj Sabha. And, I just feel that this has to be one of the most fascinating periods of a democratic history of any country where everything was out in the open. Let's be honest here. Mr. Modi's party keeps winning elections. And it's also a commentary on how the ordinary people of our country are now getting normalized to a certain level of either poor governance or corruption or an abuse of power or the complete death of democracy, the mocking of the constitution, and definitely the media becoming a complete circus. We are all okay with that. And therefore, I think down the line, Nilu, let me be very honest, I'm an eternal optimist. But I feel if things continue the way they do, we as a country will pay a price sooner rather than later. Because such flawed republics usually end up hurting their own people. And I think, regimes will change. I'm sure people will vote them out. But when you destroy institutions, they take a lot of time to recover. And that period of recovery could lead to poor service, more delayed, kind of benefits for the ordinary citizens. And more importantly, I think a disillusioned electorate. That is hardly a healthy sign for a democracy.
I was reading Saket Gokhale's tweet on this appointment of Sanjay Mishra to Economic Advisory Council. I'm not reading the whole tweet, but the operative part on which I wanted to ask you a question. He's written that this crook who deployed ED to target opposition has now been made a member of PM's Economic Advisory Council. After all this brazenness, why is Modi so scared to admit that he uses the ED against opponents like a pathetic coward? Can I ask you the last question? That I mean, nothing can be more brazen than this, that he's been rewarded and he's now part of the Economic Advisory Council. But why is Prime Minister Modi, or for that matter, anyone in his government, so scared to admit that ED is being used against the opponents?
Well, actually, Nilu, Saket is wrong. I don't agree with him. Mr. Modi is not scared to admit that the ED is an instrument of political torture. He's actually rewarded the man, right, as you rightly said. So he's telling the people of India, he's telling the opposition, hang on, you all were complaining, right, that the ED is become the big Gabbar Singh of Indian politics. Well, I have now promoted him into a very esoteric, august group of the PM Advisory Council. So yes, I do what I want to do. So Saket is wrong. Mr. Modi is admitting, I don't care a damn. That's what I told you, that I have been in India all my life. I've traveled quite a bit. And I feel that right now, if you look at Trump's America and you look at our own country, it's out in the open that political leaders with an authoritarian disposition will do what they want. Absolutely. They have no compunctions. They have no, what I call as a moral revulsion over the fact that they could be doing things that would be destructive down the line and for the health of Indian democracy. Nilu, you have heard it multiple times, right? That it's the institutions that determine a democracy. Just think hypothetically, if the media was free today, if, for example, many TV channels that hold these 9 o'clock and 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock programs, lambasting the opposition instead of questioning the government, were independent, if the income tax was independent, if the ED was totally free to do what it wants to do, if there was no washing machine culture, if the CBI was okay to do exactly what was as per law without listening to the whims of a political leader, if the election commission cared for what the opposition says are serious issues of voter list or the EVM, if the judiciary was indeed looking at not the popular will of the people, but followed the law, Mr. Modi's government would not have been in power. And I think you and I would have been talking very freely about the fact that, yes, India has problems, but there is no problem with India's democracy. We'll figure out what's the right way forward. And I think that, to me, is the tragedy of India. Let me end by telling you one thing that has been so normalized. You know, I'm a big critic of Donald Trump. I think he's going to destroy the global order. He already has done it. By the time his tenure ends, we will look like a different universe altogether. But give him credit for one thing. He does his ridiculous executive orders and his diplomacy with Zelensky on live streaming and makes a complete, shall we say, mockery of, global negotiations. But he does it at least in front of the media. Now, you can mock him, you can do what you like, but the world knows what he's up to. Now, it's not correct that you should do everything in front of the media, but at least there is 100% transparency about what he's doing and saying, or he's tweeting, even if it's something outrageous, obtuse, and downright stupid. Which brings me to the point. In India, have you noticed? We are so reconciled to the fact that the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy does not believe in holding a press conference where he will take questions from independent media on anything under the sun and answer it himself. The one time he tried doing that in the White House, I don't want to even comment as to how pathetic and how it backfired on him. So I don't see Mr. Modi ever holding a press conference. And today, if you'd say that, in a TV channel debate, saying that, you're critical of Mr. Modi for not holding even a single press conference in 11 years. He's a prime minister. He should be holding one every 3 months, if not every month. All right? Taking questions, the hardest questions, whether it's Gujarat riots or whether it's demonetization, whether it's Adani, whether it's fake encounters killing, whether it's about unemployment figures, you should take any question that comes your way. But he will do multiple choreographed interviews, but not a single press conference. And have you realized we are all normalized? It's okay. It's all right. No problem. And that to me is why citizens are equally participative in the destruction of a democracy.
Absolutely. And after Sanjay Mishra's trapeze, if I may say, at the ED, now all eyes would be on whether he can do anything drastic as a full-time member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. We'll have to wait and watch. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.